Hello and welcome to Video Game Hangover. I'm Randy Dickinson and I'm in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania.
Hello, I am DJ Ross. I am in Mountain View, California.
Each week on Video Game Hangover, we talk about the games that have been keeping us up at night. This week we're playing Card Shark and Gunlocked. Plus, we'll open up the viewer mailbag once again.
Once again, we are opening the viewer mailbag.
Excellent.
How's that go? That's about it, right?
It's always nice to hear from our viewers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To
get mail.
5,000 of them. Oh, to get mail, right.
From our viewers. Yep.
More angry Star Wars fans this week.
No, it's video game related. It's direct feedback from a previous and recent episode.
Oh.
Not episode 43, more recent than that.
Right. Recent on a less than geological time frame.
Right. Yeah. More of a linear time frame.
Right. Yeah.
Yep.
More human sized.
This is usually the part of the show where we have a little repartee, a little banter, a little like, so how are you doing? What are you up to? Kind of thing.
Yeah.
I have something in mind I would like to share is that I saw...
Oh, wait. Hold on here. Hold on. What? So, Randy, anything interesting happened to you lately? Did I set you up?
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. It's funny you should mention that. I had a little free time on Saturday, and I had read that the Uncharted movie was available for streaming here in my home.
I've been waiting for this.
Yeah. So I talked Sarah into watching the Uncharted movie with me. And I'm full of regrets, DJ. I'm full of regrets.
Full of regrets.
It's
there's the episode title. I don't need to keep this.
Full of regrets, yeah. It's not a good movie.
What?
It's very, very disappointing. Like, I like the Uncharted games. I'm a big fan.
Sure.
In fact, I think
it's been established.
It's clearly established, yeah. Uncharted kind of changed my modern perspective on video gaming. Like, I had fallen off. I had sort of detoured from the world of video games for a few years. Mm-hmm. And the PS3 and Uncharted 1 kind of got me back into, like, oh, shit, video games are fun, guys. Did you guys know that?
You were just like, if only this guy sounded more like Mark Wahlberg.
Right.
This would be my ideal video game.
So, yeah, I have a lot of problems with the characters. I have a lot of problems with so many things. And I mean, I get, to make a one-to-one movie of the Uncharted experience is, unlikely, right? It's you got to take some liberties. You can do things in movies that you can't do in video games.
Yeah.
And vice versa, yeah. Perhaps sort of more importantly as it relates to this example. Yeah, it really felt like in a lot of ways, like it took 3 people to write this, which is shocking. The 3 people that wrote the Uncharted movie had clearly never played an Uncharted game before, had really maybe only seen a couple of trailers on the internet. It bore no resemblance in so many ways to the thing that I love. So it's, it was just super disappointing. And I get that they were trying to make a prequel almost. So it's young Nathan Drake.
Yeah.
But
how is that true? Or how can that be the case that they've never played an Uncharted game when that whole cargo plane set piece is directly out of Uncharted 3?
Directly out of the trailer for Uncharted 3. So it's like the greatest hits. So they took a he's not teenage, I guess he's young 20s, right? How old is that Batman kid? Nope, Spider-Man kid.
Spider-Man, yeah.
Yep.
He's probably older than he looks.
Yeah. Okay. But anyway, and they sort of went through the Uncharted greatest hits.
Okay.
And And like, oh, either like one of the video games, he has a brother. So like he's got a brother in the movie, and but like that's
And
kind of where
he's also a teenager.
he's also at the beginning. He's also a teenager,
Okay.
and then he's missing through the rest of it. So you get a little like motivation there. And then Wahlberg shows up as Sully, and like nothing about Sully. And for the record, I hate Mark Wahlberg as an actor. Like one of my least favorite actors of all time. I'm fairly certain I've never seen a good Mark Wahlberg movie.
Man, you're missing out. He's done some good stuff.
Name three.
He was in Three Kings. He was in The Departed. And what's that third one that I like? I'm blanking on it. But he was in the I'll put The Departed on there twice.
Okay, all right. I'll give you Three Kings because that was a good movie. I forgot he was in that. I had not associated him with that. It's funny you should mention that because the director of Three Kings was supposed to direct the Uncharted movie before the director of Venom swooped in and took over.
Everyone's favorite.
Yeah. So, no, it's a mess. Like Sully, the character of Sully in the movie bears almost no resemblance to the character of Sully in the video game, except that he sort of has a sense of humor and is not to be trusted. But again, like it's a sketch of a character. Like you've got 50 hours of video gaming, much of it featuring the character of Victor Sullivan that you could sort of extract things from. Again, if we're doing greatest hits of Uncharted. No, they just sort of made Sully some other character, some other person. Yeah. And in the final, like 30 seconds of the movie, he shows up with a mustache, and like all of the video game fans are supposed to go, oh, I get it.
Oh, it's Uncharted now.
Yeah, it's got a Hawaiian shirt on too, which is like in the video game. Just terrible. It's just so bad. And Wahlberg is just humorless and wooden, and it's just, it was not entertaining. Like great big giant set pieces, big action scenes, and I felt nothing. I was dead inside. At one point, an hour and a half into this 2-hour opus, my girlfriend, who has never played an Uncharted video game before, goes, I don't know who this movie's for. So there. Uncharted, ladies and gentlemen.
I know Mark Wahlberg has been rumored to be, or he was like, rumored to be Nathan Drake, actually.
At one point,
in this movie for a long time.
Yeah.
And I was always like, I don't know about that. I feel like he could have, like, it's a bit of a stretch, but I could see him doing a young Sully. But sounds like didn't quite pull it off.
Yeah.
It's too bad.
I don't know who to blame here. I don't, and maybe trying to make a movie of Uncharted is just a thankless task. But it just felt hollow. Like they're supposed to be like these jokes that they say to each other, and like none of it was funny, and it was just disappointing, just so sad. Like you have all of this template to draw from, and I don't know. I just really felt like it was super phoned in.
I like that they didn't try and do it, I was going to say I like that they didn't try and just recreate one of the Uncharted games, but it sounds like they kind of used pieces of each one. But I mean,
just
I liked
them out, yeah.
I liked the thought that this may have been kind of a separate thing where it's like young Drake in theory, but it sounds like they just didn't execute on it.
It is. The thing that I thought was sort of noteworthy is that it's probably an hour plus into the movie before Drake has a gun and shoots at anybody. Mm-hmm. And,
well, he's got a lot of time to make up for that. He's got to kill like 400 dudes in the last 30 minutes.
He's got hundreds of dudes he has to make up for. So yeah, I don't know that you could necessarily make Nathan Drake into the mass murderer that he is in the video games in the movie and make that, palatable to the 13-year-olds that were lining up to see this? I'm not sure. The Tom Holland army.
What's his body count in the movie? Is it anywhere near the as high as it gets in the games?
Not no. Like single digits.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that's fine. That seems appropriate for an action movie.
Yeah, like it is so sort of muted on the kind of violence front. And listen, I don't want like blood splattering down the walls in an Uncharted movie, but like the Uncharted games are violent. Like he jumps on people's backs and snaps their neck.
Yeah.
And at some point in this, someone gets their throat cut, and it's completely bloodless. There is zero blood.
Oh.
So again, maybe they had a certain rating they were going for here, but I'm fairly certain if you slice a guy's neck, there's going to be a little spray. Someone's going to have to get a mop.
Someone has to get a mop. I feel like an Uncharted movie should be a PG-13 at the most. Like, I don't know how much it would be improved by going to an R rating.
Yeah.
Yeah? I don't know if we need the blood spray. I mean, I get what you're saying. It looks weird.
Yeah. But at
the same time, like, how many times does he get punched or, just stand right back up again?
Oh, a lot. Oh, tons, yeah. Like, he's thrown off of things, thrown into things, hit by a car, falls out of an airplane, on and on and on.
That's not realistic.
Just gets the snot beat out of him, yeah. And gets up and brushes himself off and runs away. It left me so cold. I was so angry. There was for a minute.
I'm sorry to hear that.
I read it's Uncharted streaming. It made a lot of money. A lot of people went to see it. It seems to be generally sort of well received. Maybe this will be an entertaining piece of entertainment. An entertaining piece of entertainment.
I love it.
And it was not.
Not the case. Oh well. Kind of had a suspicion that was how it was going to go, but sorry to hear that.
I don't want to yuck somebody else's yum. If you enjoyed the Uncharted movie, thought it was a fine, entertaining piece of entertainment, then good for you. I'm here to say that I disagree.
All right. Well.
Yeah.
All right. Got your official stance on the Uncharted
minimal
movie.
effort was put into making this thing entertaining.
I feel like a lot of effort went into this. It looks very expensive.
Yes. 20 minutes of credits at the end indicates that a lot of people really made this thing. Yeah. Nolan North's in it. That was fun.
What?
I had a moment like at the end where I sort of pointed at the TV and went, he's got a mustache now. I get it. There was a point at which, and I don't want to spoil it for anybody who still wants to see this thing happen. Nolan North pops up, and same thing, sitting in my little chair on the couch next to my girlfriend. Pointed at the TV. You know who that guy is? I know who that guy is. Listen to his voice, because that's what it's supposed to sound like.
That's funny. I'm glad they got him in there somewhere.
Yeah. Hope he made a little bit of cash off of this thing.
Yeah. Man, I can't believe this. Mark Wahlberg was in Boogie Nights. How could I forget?
There you go. There's your third movie.
Yeah.
I'll give you all three of those.
Boogie Nights is so good. Have you seen that?
I saw that in the theater back in the day. Yeah.
I don't know why you would ever, say anything negative about Mark Wahlberg after, his terrific performance of Boogie Nights. Got the scene where he's in the recording booth is just unbelievable. The peak of acting.
So maybe it's a director thing, because the three movies that you cited, Three Kings is David O. Russell, very good director. Boogie Nights is P.T. Anderson, amazing director. And Departed is Scorsese, right? So,
Yeah.
Maybe he just needs good leadership. Perhaps the guy who directed Venom was not the person to bring out the subtleties of Victor Sullivan.
Yeah. They should have checked whether Amy Hennig was free. I don't know if she ever directed one of those, but probably would have done a better job than
she gets a thank you in the credits. I did notice that at the end. It's like, thanks to the following, and Amy Hennig is the first name on the list. And
really?
I don't know what her proper title is in the history of these things, but she was very pivotal in, I think, the first three Uncharted games.
I think so. I don't want to commit to that, but sure.
Yeah. And then left to make a Star Wars game that got canceled.
Yeah.
Womp womp.
Speaking of Star Wars, I finished last Fallen Jedi, Return of the Jedi, whatever. The Star Wars game I was playing. It had too many words in the title.
Revenge of the Jedi.
Revenge of the Jedi. Yeah, I think that was it.
Yeah. Fallen now
Jedi.
I don't know either. I know you were joking, but maybe you were joking, but I don't remember what it's called either.
It's got Jedi in there somewhere.
Yes, it does. Yep.
Pretty sure of it.
Yeah, how was that?
It was good. I mean, it's, just moving on from Uncharted back to Star Wars Uncharted. Like, by the end of it, I really did feel like, there's just a lot of Uncharted going on. At one point, I looked up and I was like, dude, this guy just murdered like 100 stormtroopers. I know they're just sort of anonymous kind of foot soldiers in this plastic armor. And that's kind of how they've always been treated. But it's like, it's a kind of horrific. But then I just remembered, it's because he's just Nathan Drake in the Star Wars universe. So that's what he does.
Fine. You can do that. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I'd be disappointed if he didn't just indiscriminately slaughter a bunch of these guys.
But I mean, what's your average, Star Wars protagonist body count in a movie?
I don't know. I feel like it's not that high. I mean, they do blow up the Death Star. I don't know how many people were on that thing.
Yeah, there's a lot.
So they probably have Nathan Drake beat.
That's the thing I remember about Clerks is the line about sort of blowing up the Death Star is the most ruthless thing you can do, because not only do you have all of sort of the evil Star Wars people on there, but you've got it's still under construction. You've got contractors, you got their families on there. Yeah,
you got all the chefs in the cafeteria and all that.
Yeah, a lot of people who just showed up for work that day and weren't necessarily part of that whole thing.
I wonder if they just have the stormtroopers do that. I mean, they're all clones anyway, right? Maybe they have some that are just like, all right, you're in the kitchen this week.
Did not know they were all clones.
Oh, yeah. Oh, man, you got some... I almost said Star Trek. You got some Star Wars to catch up on.
Yeah. No, I had no clue. I don't know. I think I have Spaceballs in my brain where they take off their helmets and chat and smoke outside of the...
Oh, yeah.
The exit door afterwards and stuff like that. I just figured they were just, some dudes.
I don't know if they were widely established as clones when Spaceballs got made. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
Still pretty good game overall. I wanted to say that I was complaining last week that I wouldn't get to update my lightsaber color until after finishing the game, which was not entirely true. They give you the opportunity to do it very late in the game, but still, there's just a little bit of the game left. So I was able to, get my purple lightsaber. Able to swing it around for a few hours. Cool. Pretty good. But after finishing it, I had very little motivation to go back and kind of explore the rest of the areas over again. So I thought it was fine, though. Just kind of wrapped it up. Move on to the next thing.
Cool.
I still think you would be into it, though. It is very Uncharted.
I'm kind of intrigued. Like I said, I like that other one where you were you were Darth Vader, were you not? You were a bad guy.
You were the apprentice or something like that.
Yeah, I had little powers and stuff that you could do. I had a lot of fun playing that game. But yeah, I need a new good Uncharted-ish type of game.
Yeah, they should hold you over. But, I mean, I suspect this would hold you over at least for a little while. The force powers you get in this are not nearly as flamboyant as the ones in that other game, in the Force Unleashed. But still, some good stuff. Toss a lot of guys off cliffs. It's always good.
Force Unleashed, that's what it was called. I remember pulling spaceships out of the sky with a little force move. That was kind of fun, and crashing them into each other in the air.
Yeah, nothing quite that dramatic in this.
No.
Yeah, it's a bit more grounded. I mean, as grounded as a Star Wars game could be.
Yeah. Do you hide behind boxes and shoot at random bad guys a lot?
No, because you don't have a gun.
Oh.
Which I think would be the weirdest thing for you, as I keep pitching this as an Uncharted game.
Yeah, right. How is this a third-person shooter?
You can throw your lightsaber, but it's not quite the same thing.
All right. Well, I will keep my eyes peeled for a cheap copy of this somewhere.
Yeah. And
just skip the cutscenes.
Yeah. I don't know if the story was terrific. Probably not. Doesn't rank up there with the Uncharted games. Surprising amount, actually. This caught me by surprise. The number of cutscenes or just plot beats that just devolved into oh, it's okay because we have the power of friendship. And I was like, what? Is that a Star Wars thing? I feel like that's not really a Star Wars thing. Is that just how every script goes these days? It was a little weird. It was a little Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah, I mean, just recently coming off of playing the Guardians of the Galaxy game. It was it's surprising. I guess perhaps not surprising given the context there of just how much of that stuff was sort of we could do it if we all work together.
Yeah, that's kind of the gag, though, in Guardians of the Galaxy, though, right? Because they're just like these guys.
Yeah.
What do they have going for them?
But no one's first choice. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. They're just such a good group, though. They can do anything if they work together and all that stuff.
Right.
But no, I feel like it's, I don't know what my sort of narrative expectations are from a Star Wars property at this point. But I feel like it's a little more ambitious than, everything will be fine because we're just such good friends. We've got each other's backs.
I want the moment in the Star Wars game where one of the character goes, "Wow, that was a disaster. We really should not have worked together on this." Yeah. I'm going to go solo. I'm taking it solo. I'm going to go Han Solo on this.
Jesus. Oh, man. I'm sorry I even brought it up. All right. Where do we go from here?
Video games. I played at least one good video game in the past week. Did you
good.
play any good video games?
Did I? Yes, I.
Maybe?
Sure.
Would you like to do yours first or mine first?
I can go first. We'll see how this goes.
Sure. What are you playing, DJ?
I played Gunlocked at the sort of brought to my attention by a few people on our Discord, actually. Mm-hmm. This is a fairly recent new game in kind of the vein of Vampire Survivors from a few months ago.
Yeah. Are we already at the point where like Vampire Survivors inspired type video games are coming out?
Oh, I think it was inevitable.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't really know when I expected them. I don't know how long it takes to make a game. And certainly if you're going to like do a fast turn on a new video game, Vampire Survivors is one of the easier templates to work off of.
Sure.
If you somehow you missed the Vampire Survivors phenomenon, it is an incredibly simple sort of arcade game. A bit like Geometry Wars in that it seems like a twin stick shooter where you just have a character in the middle of the screen who shoots at swarms of enemies who are attacking you. But you would pick up all these different weapon power-ups and everything. And one of the weirdest hooks about Vampire Survivors is that you didn't actually like aim. You didn't like have a second stick to aim. You just steered your guy around, and your weapons would fire automatically. So this is kind of the same idea. Gunlocked is kind of the same idea, except rather than the sort of top-down kind of all-directional format, it looks like a vertical scrolling like arcade shooter. Like, I don't know. God, I can't believe I'm blanking on this. Like Galaga or something.
Oh.
So you're a little spaceship, and there are asteroids floating down from the top and all these enemy ships. And your weapons are on auto-fire, so it's your job to just kind of steer around, avoid obstacles, and kind of ensure that your ship is in the best position it can be for the next time your weapons start shooting.
Interesting.
Yeah. Similarly, it has this upgrade system where you pick up different weapons that they just pile onto your ship. And you also get these augments that just basically give you different abilities. Like there's a healing drone and various types of shields and things like that. But it's very similar to Vampire Survivors in that each run turns into like, oh, which weapon should I equip this time? Eventually you settle on sort of like your preferred build, depending on which weapons work for you, and kind of learn to keep an eye out for specific upgrades along the way. So I played a little bit of this because I'm a huge Vampire Survivors fan. Mm-hmm. I played so much of that when it kind of blew up a few months ago. And like you, I was kind of wondering the same thing, like, oh man, when are the first sort of like, I don't want to say clones, but sort of Vampire Survivors inspired games? When are those going to come out?
Sure, yeah. As sort of happens with like, you know, every now and then these little indie games sort of like, you know, light on fire, and then the imitators come.
Yeah. Similarly, I'm still waiting for all the Valheim imitators to show up because I don't know what those guys are doing, but I want more of that game.
Yeah. Probably a little more ambitious, a little more.
Yeah, that's on the longer time frame. But until then, we have Vampire Survivors knockoff.
I'm disappointed it's not like Zombie Survivors or Witch Survivors or something like that.
I mean, they may very well have those out there. I haven't been really doing a lot of research on these just because Vampire Survivors has been holding me over. But
yeah,
who knows? There's probably like, what is it? Zombie Survivors out there right now.
Right.
Isn't that just Left 4 Dead? Somebody hasn't done like a Left 4 Dead demake?
A demake, yeah.
That seems like it must exist.
I'm not sure. Yeah. Seems like there would be a crowd for that, yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, so Vampire Survivors like plus 2D side-scrolling shooter sounds great. Sounds like my thing. So I spent a little bit of time with it this week. I think I didn't really enjoy it though.
Oh.
It just feels like, I don't know what it is. It's just like, maybe it's too easy. The kind of the most amazing thing about Vampire Survivors is the whole time you're playing it, you feel like you're just teetering on the brink of just getting destroyed by all these enemies. Which is funny because as you pick up all these power-ups, your weapons just become so absurdly powerful. You just turn into this like little rapid-firing like turret of destruction, and you see just the amount of firepower that you're putting out, and you go, wow, this is, nobody can stand up to this. And then you look around and there's just thousands of zombies surrounding you, and you go, oh, this is not looking so good, actually. But it manages to just sort of toe that line where you just manage to barely keep ahead of all these monsters swarming you. You're just powerful enough to hold them off. At least, if you're decent at playing the game, I suppose.
Right.
But that's the amazing thing is you're always just like kind of scraping by. In Gunlocked, though, it doesn't feel like the level of challenge never approaches anywhere near that level. It feels like it always felt like I had a pretty good handle on managing the amount of enemies on my screen and getting enough power-ups or collecting the next health drone. And I don't know if it's just because I played a lot of vertical shooters, so this felt kind of like second nature, just moving the ship around. But I don't know. It doesn't seem like it's too far removed from Vampire Survivors. I feel like they could just pack in a few more enemies. Actually, way more enemies.
Yeah. So this is like a balancing objective, right? This is somewhere in playtesting.
I think so.
In the probably short development lifespan of Vampire Survivors, someone tweak the hell out of that to just the right point where it feels like I could die at any moment, but I'm not. Sure. I'm winning. Yeah.
Sure. And to be fair, this is still in early access, so I'm not trying to pass final judgment on this game. I'm sure they're going to do a lot more work and add a bunch more features and tweak other features. But where it stands now, it seems a little bit on the easy side, to the point where towards the end of a run, you'll run into bosses periodically along the way, and then the next boss will be more powerful, and then the next one there's 2 bosses, and I thought, okay, so maybe I'm getting to that point where it's just going to tip over, and finally I'll be swarmed with all these enemies, and it'll get super intense, and I'll just die. But lo and behold, I just beat the latest wave of bosses, and it was like, all right, you did it. Do you want to start a new game? I thought, what? that was it? I feel like we were just getting started there.
That was the whole thing, apparently.
Yeah, so,
wow.
I don't know. I also just don't feel like it's just not as satisfying to play as Vampire Survivors, which is, I don't mean to just directly drag everything back to Vampire Survivors, but it's kind of just the obvious thing to do.
Sure. I mean, but how does it compare to Uncharted?
Well, the story's not quite as good.
Oh, okay.
Could have used more Mark Wahlberg.
Yeah, as could most things.
Oh, man. I just feel like, I don't know what it is. The weapons in this game and all the upgrades you pick up are just weirdly unsatisfying to use. The sort of the namesake weapon that you start out with on your ship, the Gunlocked, you would think if you're playing a vertical scrolling shooter, you would have some kind of simple laser cannon or something that shoots forward at the top of the screen. That seems like a given.
Yeah.
But the default weapon they stick you with is this Gunlocked thing that it basically sweeps a little radar line around your ship, and whatever that crosses over, it will target, and then your ship fires homing missiles at that thing, which is a very interesting design for a weapon, but I feel like it has a couple of problems. The first being it's just really weird and unintuitive to use, because you kind of have to steer your ship around. Meanwhile, this thing is rotating, so you have to sort of compensate for that. And then the other thing is that it puts so much of a delay between sort of you reacting to enemies and the enemies actually getting fired upon and destroyed, that it just feels like, I don't know, you're not really having a direct impact on stuff that is happening on the screen, because you'll steer your ship around and the radar thing will lock onto enemies. And then a little bit later, the missiles come out, and by then you're just dealing with new enemies that pop up on the screen. So I thought it was a very strange sort of weapon to start you out with. Like, I'm all for having a game where they just give you some bonkers weird weapon to start out with, and that's sort of like the central mechanic for a game, but I felt like this one was just, it was very weird, but it wasn't doing it for me.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like that could be and maybe it is intended to be this a selling point for a game like this, but
it could be, yeah.
And does that gunlock ability or weapon like change or get faster or get better over time, or is that is that what it is at the first setting, what it is at the end?
You can power it up, so you can like increase the range and damage on it. And I thought, based on the progression in Vampire Survivors, and this is like true in this, you just pick up tons and tons of other weapons that just get added on to your ship. So, if this gunlock thing isn't working out for me, I just thought, oh, okay, well, I'll just pick up a different weapon, and that one will be better.
Yeah.
But, like, so many of the weapons in this are similarly just, like, weird. I feel like they were maybe trying to be too clever with some of it. Like, one of the other weapons you get is, like, a remote drone that'll go around and attack things. So I was like, sure, that's fine. But then you get things like these mines, which you drop down and then you have to like run over them yourself to detonate them. And I thought, well, this is just, I don't know. It feels like there's just one too many steps involved in using any of these weapons. Whereas in Vampire Survivors, it's just like, oh, you found a knife. All right, now you shoot knives. Or now you have a little like book that rotates around you and kills enemies. They're just so direct and sort of simple in terms of how they function. Every time you pick one up, you're like, oh yeah, I want that thing because I couldn't shoot fireballs before, and once I get that, I'll be able to shoot fireballs, and it's great.
Right. Why would you not want to shoot fireballs?
Yeah. But in this, I had to think about all the pickups I was being offered, but just in weird ways where I was like, is this going to be annoying to use? Like, do I want to drop mines and then have to like drive over them again? I don't know if that's going to work out.
Also, that's not how mine works.
Yeah, well, I mean, who knows? It's like a space mine. I don't know. There are multiple characters you can unlock, and thankfully the second one you have a different weapon, which is much closer to, it's like a much more standard weapon, where it's like a laser beam that shoots out, and after a couple seconds, it blows up whatever it's targeting. So I thought, oh, okay, this is better. So I actually like the second character much more than the first one, but the game still has that issue where it's just not that threatening, and it was very easy to keep everything at bay with just with minimal effort. So I don't know, kind of just a lukewarm introduction to this thing.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep my eye on it, though, because, like I said, it's still in early access. I would really love for there to be just tons and tons of Vampire Survivors likes. Vampire likes? I don't know.
Somebody needs to come up with a better,
Yeah.
A vamp-like.
A vamp-like. There you go. So I'd love for there to be tons of vamp-likes in all sorts of genres. Maybe Gunlocked will get there at some point, but in its current state, I don't know. I just wasn't super into it.
It's interesting that these kind of old video games, because if I remember correctly, Vampire Survivors was the one that upon you describing it, sort of felt like it reminded me of Robotron.
Yeah.
And you said Gunlocked is a little more Galaga. It's weird that we're sort of mining these kind of old video game templates for entertainment in 2022.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think all those games had just a simplicity going for them, where it's the very basic idea of the game is very minimal, but still pretty fun for anybody to just pick up and start playing.
Sure, of course. There's a reason those are timeless, right?
Yeah. I don't know what else you had in mind. I was immediately went to Uncharted and how somebody would make a vamp-like version of Uncharted.
Pitfall. Remember Pitfall? Pitfall was basically
sure.
just Uncharted. Yeah.
I mean, sure.
Pitfall is Indiana Jones.
Never thought of it that way, but yeah.
Is really just Tomb Raider, and Tomb Raider is really just Uncharted.
Right. No, I was trying to think of like if you were gonna make this type of game, but using Uncharted as the mold, would it be like thousands of guys swarming in to throw grenades at you or something?
Yeah.
I thought like maybe that's just Serious Sam. Maybe they already made that game.
Right, yeah.
But who knows? Maybe they could get a little more, go with something more recent as the mold. somebody will do that eventually.
Or what old video game? And we were talking about Qbert last week, where, Pac-Man is always around, asteroids, etc. And, various attempts to sort of update those to modern aesthetics and modern soundtracks and, kind of modern gameplay loops over the years have, to a certain degree, not always landed. Although the Pac-Man, Championship Pac-Man,
it's pretty
was
good.
a ton of fun. There was a new version of Frogger, the Crossy Road, that was really good a couple of years ago. Yeah. So, some of those stick the landing.
Yeah. Just trying to think. You can't pick up too many power-ups in Frogger. Oh, they did make that Pac-Man... Was it Pac-Man 99 where you had all the weird power-ups?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was like... Oh, man, that predates Vampire Survivors. Maybe they were onto something.
Yeah.
Just Pac-Man versus a million ghosts. Well, anyway, so... I don't love to come on here and just be like, oh, I don't like this game. But I feel like there's potential there. I would love to see it sort of go through some additional tuning.
Yeah.
I'll be keeping my eye on it.
And
it could just be like, maybe it wasn't enjoyable for me. Maybe it'd be something other people are into.
Yeah. Like the Uncharted movie.
Sure.
Right. It's sort of the disadvantage of early access to a certain degree, right? Is that, you're seeing something that's very much a work in progress, right?
Yeah, I'm not really sure what to think. I don't really play a lot of early access games.
Yeah.
In the past, when I have, it's always been sort of, I feel like fairly early on. Like I got into Dead Cells very early and then just ignored it for years. And I actually have not gone and spent a significant amount of time with it since the final version came out. And not even like the final version, but like the release version.
Yeah.
And they've just been putting out updates since then.
Constant updates. I feel like the game is always sort of like the new expansion, the new thing. Yeah, there's this character. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm always kind of wary. Like whenever I see a game is in early access, first of all, sometimes it's even hard to tell what that means. Like Minecraft was in beta for years. But I'll see it and just be like, oh, okay, let me know when you're out of early access, and then I'll check it out. Maybe so I don't run into situations like this with Gunlocked. But, based on, the Vampire Survivors connection, and it's just a few dollars on Steam, similar to Vampire Survivors, I was just like, well, let's check it out.
Yeah.
So they can't all be winners, I suppose.
But they have potential, and that's the interesting thing, is that
they could be winners someday. We'll see.
Hopefully continue to polish this thing, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. So that was called Gunlocked, right? And you said you're playing on Steam.
Yes. Currently it's only on Steam. Yeah, if it sounds interesting to you, what do you have to lose? It's like, spend a few hours with it. Maybe you'll have a better time than I did.
Yeah. So, I had plans last week. I was going to play a different game. I was going to play. I played quite a bit of actually this game called Citizen Sleeper, which I'll be talking about next week. But Nintendo did their little Indies World thing, like basically a little pre-planned sizzle reel of a bunch of indie games that were coming to the Switch, and as Nintendo likes to do, and I find it very exciting too. Sometimes, every now and then, a certain percentage of those games in these Nintendo presentations are like, and it's available right now in the eShop. That's always very exciting.
Yeah. So
this game, Card Shark, showed up on the Nintendo Indie World thing last week, and I had never heard of this game before. It's a Devolver game. And it looked very cool. I was kind of intrigued by the trailer. And they're like, oh, this is coming out in a couple weeks. And I was like, oh, cool. All right, well, I'll put it on a list. I'll kind of come back to it later. But the demo is available on the eShop today.
Okay. I was like, me. I thought you were going to say this is one of those shadow drop things.
No, they shadow dropped the
they dropped the demo. Okay, yeah. Got it.
And the demo is a mighty piece of work. It is over 2 hours of content. So if any of what I'm about to say sounds intriguing to you, definitely on your Switch. It's also on PC. Check out the demo for Card Shark. And the full game comes out in, I think, early June, very soon. So the hook here is that it's 18th century France.
Okay.
as all great video games begin.
Yes, yeah, of course. Just like Vampire Survivors.
Sure, and you're a servant boy at a sort of a gambling hall, drinking room kind of situation, quite henpecked by the woman who runs the place. And there's a count who is trying to win a hand of cards against some other rogues. And he teaches you how to cheat for him, basically. He teaches you how to sort of pour drinks while kind of counting cards and checking out the cards of his opponents. And the game sort of conveys this with some interesting kind of like button presses and little kind of interaction points. Basically, you sort of have to tilt the joystick to kind of pour wine while it opens up a side panel on the side of the screen where you have to sort of see kind of over the shoulder of his opponents. And you have to kind of count, there's 4 spades in his deck. And then you take out a cloth and you wipe the table. And you go in his direction that sort of indicates what the suit is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so you're actually playing cards in this.
So you eventually are playing cards. So it's kind of a deck building game in the sense that, like, I've played games like Inscription or Slay the Spire in the past, where it's sort of very much a card-based video game.
Well,
and this is a video game
building game. You just have the deck of cards.
Sure. This is a video game about playing cards. You're not playing cards as the video game.
Right.
Yeah. Through a series of other events, something goes wrong. You find yourself on the run with the Count, a duplicitous and very overeducated gentleman. And he has a plan. Because you're such a quick study, he's going to take you on a whirlwind tour of France where you're going to con everybody you come in contact with, and try to sort of work your way into, French gentry and, the elite aristocrats of the era. And then
this is a lot for a demo.
Yeah, and try to beat them at an assortment of card games and, hopefully maybe help yourself to quite a bit of their money. Along the way, double-crossing, murder, lots of lies are told. You cheat pretty aggressively at nearly every game he teaches you. Everybody you sort of run into that is a friend of the Count's is also kind of an untrustworthy and unreliable rogue. And these are not sort of lovable video game rogues, not like Nathan Drake, but, just really not good people. Who are not sort of, discriminating in who they try to rip off. But it is... it's one of the few video game experiences where I genuinely feel like I'm playing the villain. You are not a good person. And you sort of willingly go along with this because it gets you out of your sort of gross and mundane life of being a servant boy. And you get to see the world. You get to see France anyways. One after another, the Count and some of his sort of associates teach you first a card game and then how to cheat for them and with them at that card game.
Are these actual card games?
And they're actual card games. You learn like 3-card money and, variations on poker.
Well, I don't know. 3-card money is a card game.
Well, there's a whole hook there in that you sort of have to follow 3-card money is your 3 cards. One of them's a queen. And you sort of slide them around and through some sleight of hand, the sucker, the mark, is supposed to sort of figure out which one of those cards is the queen. And meanwhile, you're learning how to sort of pocket cards and stuff like that to be able to sort of, make sure they never pick the queen and you always get their money. What was the other one that you learned that was really interesting? It was sort of this interesting kind of card game where, pick a card, any card kind of situation. Now put it back in the deck and we'll cut the deck and blah, blah, blah. And here's this one, your card. And the game teaches you sort of these interesting mechanics. And the closest I can sort of like, kind of associate it with any video game I've ever played before is it feels a little bit like Heavy Rain. Those sort of David Cage games where you have sort of like a series of kind of interesting kind of like joystick and button move combos that sort of ape like a real world movement. So for example, in Heavy Rain, you have to sort of move the joystick back and forth to like simulate your character brushing his teeth. And here you're sort of like, you in the course of shuffling a deck of cards, you drop a bunch of cards, and then you have to in-jog. This is a phrase the game teaches you, a little card that's sort of your marker. So you can kind of tell where in the deck the marks card is hidden. and how to sort of like do a fake shuffle. And you're doing a series of sort of joystick moves and stuff like that to be able to kind of pull this off in button presses. And then, so you get a number of times to sort of practice it with the count. And he goes, okay, now let's take, that's your mark. Let's take that person on. And then the game doesn't tell you how to do it anymore. You just have to remember. And sometimes you'll get sort of like a series of events where you have to sort of layer like a couple of these techniques on top of each other, where you have to sort of in-jock cards and do a fake, a shuffle, and you also have to sort of like hide the queen, and you also have to sort of like help the count figure out which cards his opponents have. And it would be really helpful if you could count exactly how many cards of that suit he has. So not only do you have to sort of remember to not spill the wine as you're pouring it, but you have to wipe the table in a circular motion to indicate that it's spades, and do it 4 times to indicate that his opponent has 4 spades, and on and on. So it gets really difficult, but it is super compelling. It's like, there's a lot of interesting story. There's a lot of really interesting kind of window dressing. It's kind of an interesting time in France. Obviously, there's a lot of stuff going on kind of in the background of this game. The people that you're ripping off are mostly horrible, but you're also kind of equally horrible in a very different way. So it's just, it's kind of a game with no heroes, and you do a lot of sort of duplicitous things, but it's also really interesting and really fascinating in a way that I think a lot of video games are not willing to sort of like confront. Yeah, I don't know. It's just this weird random thing that I was sort of like, oh, I'm kind of super sucked into this, and I want to play a lot more of this. I actually found myself, after the 2 hours of the demo, going back and doing practice rounds with people as they were teaching me new games, just to like, hone my techniques and stuff like that.
Yeah, you gotta, get that muscle memory down.
Exactly. And the cool thing about this demo is that your progress in the demo carries into the game should you buy the full thing later.
Of course.
So the couple of hours that I've put into the demo for Card Shark now will allow me to sort of pick up where I left off once the full thing comes out in early June.
Huh. Well, that sounds cool. I was thinking this is just going to be like a card game, like you're just playing cards at the table or something, or like best case you're counting cards at the blackjack table or whatever. But
so you do a lot of that stuff too, but you also do a lot of these really sort of, duplicitous sleight of hand.
Yeah, it sounds like a sleight of hand game.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one way to look at it. I think, you meet a sort of a roving band of magicians, and they teach you little up close magic tricks and stuff like that. Very sort of Penn and Teller kind of stuff, where it's sort of like, okay, we're going to show you sort of what's behind the veil, but they're also sort of simultaneously trying to rip you off. Yeah, so it's a very kind of interesting and colorful cast of characters, and just a very, dark and interesting, intriguing world that I can't remember ever having sort of been depicted in a video game before.
Yeah, that's man, I'm totally blanking on what game this reminds me of, but I just love when games will use the controller to sort of mimic whatever's actually going on rather than just having you push a button over and over.
Right, exactly. Or God forbid, turn it into like a QuickTime event or something like that.
Yeah, because I was imagining like, okay, so you need to put a card on the deck somewhere. Is it just like push the B button at the right time, but you have to fumble with the sticks and whatever? That's way more interesting.
Yeah, I really dig it. So the thing that it reminded me of quite a bit was Inscription, actually, which is a game I played last year. One of my favorites from last year. I would recommend. It absolutely is a very awesome and completely unique video game where you're playing a really kind of unique and made for the game card game. You're not playing poker or something like that, is what I mean. It's just something that's sort of exclusive to that game with its own sort of type of deck and things like that. And you're playing against somebody who's also very unreliable, will sometimes cheat, will sometimes sort of lead you astray, will, manipulate a series of events so that you fail and then challenge you to do something else. That has a whole kind of aesthetic that is very creepy. You're sort of, trapped in a cabin in the woods with this, malicious tormentor who wants to see you squirm while playing, a very scary card game with him. But yeah, there are tones of that game that are very sort of malicious, and that sort of unreliable narrator thing where you're like, am I in on it or am I getting conned? And there's quite a bit of Card Shark that sort of feels like that too, is that you're like, oh, it's cool that this guy took me under his thumb and this guy, is going to teach me all these tricks, but like, you don't trust anybody. And this thing, you absolutely should not, because they're, again, not good people. And there are a series of things that happen quite early in the demo that, really kind of throw you off center. And while you're also sort of following this person around France willingly, you also know, like in your heart of hearts as a player, that this is a person not to be trusted. So yeah, it's just, again, really interesting. And it's a, very sort of complex and layered characterizations that, don't always make it into video games.
Huh. Well, I'm intrigued. I'll have to check out the demo.
Yeah, very much so. So if any of this sounds interesting, the demo's out. It's out on Switch. It's out on PC. The full game comes out early June. A beautiful game, awesome soundtrack. I was watching the credits for this, and they have a full like Baroque orchestra of like appropriate like 18th century instrumentations and stuff like that. It's really, again, sort of this labor of love. I feel like where somebody put a lot of polish and did a ton of research just to make sure they had 18th century France right. And built a soundtrack around it that sort of supports that. And yeah, it's just really, really good and quite beautiful and fully realized.
Nice.
Yeah.
And I was just going through my list of like DS games, trying to figure out what this reminded me of. And there are actually so many DS games that had little mechanics like this. It's kind of amazing how prevalent it was. But I was just thinking, like, did you ever play the Mario basketball game on the DS? Where you actually have to dribble.
I don't think so.
You had to like use the touchscreen to dribble the ball around your character so people couldn't like intercept it from you.
No, really, that's interesting.
Which sounds obnoxious, but it was like, oh, this is actually, in any other basketball game, you would probably not even be pushing a button to dribble the ball up and down the court.
Push A to dribble, yeah.
Yeah. Or like in the Chinatown Wars GTA game, you actually had to hotwire the car control panel. I was like, oh yeah.
I love that game. That's a great game.
So interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Huh. They did that with the Mario tennis game too. That like the bottom screen, the touch screen on the DS was like a tennis court, and you had to sort of like return volley on the ball in a specific direction. You had to actually, as I guess you do in tennis, you have to send it to a section of your competitor's court
right.
where they're not, and
ideally,
make them run to it
away
to
from
hit it
them.
back. Yeah, so you have to use the bottom screen to sort of plan your shots and kind of swipe the stylus to return the ball to a section of the court where they're not. So yeah, again, there was a whole like, kind of one-to-one mechanic they were trying to create using that touchscreen.
Yeah. It's interesting because like if you were to describe something like this, like, oh yeah, you dribble the ball with the touchscreen, or you spin the analog sticks around instead of just pushing a button to hide the queen or whatever it is. It's like, well, how long is that going to be interesting and not just obnoxious? But
right.
It sounds like it doesn't outlive its welcome throughout this demo.
No, not at all. Yeah, it's interesting because, again, I think just going through those mechanics make you sort of feel like I'm doing the thing. Like, you can push A to hide the queen, right? In any video game. But if you actually sort of remember the correct combination of buttons and hold it for just the right amount of time and et cetera, you feel like you've kind of, I've pulled it off. And the game is really sort of astute about like taking the prompts away from you when you have to do it for real later. Mm-hmm. It's just, again, very, very compellingly assembled here. And again, I got to imagine it's one of those things where a lot of like playtesting kind of went into making it feel just right.
Yeah. Oh, well, cool. Check this one out for sure.
Card Shark.
All right. You want to dip back into the viewer mailbag?
Yeah, let's do it.
This one, got an email from Robert. It's mostly about this game we talked about last week, or a game you talked about last week, Never a Song. Do you want to take this one?
Sure. Robert says, I listened to the episode about Never Song. It was created by Thomas Brush. He has a YouTube channel where he documents his game development. I find it interesting watching other game developers' work in progress. I've yet to play it, but I have started to play his first game, Pinstripe, but I need to finish it. But Octopath is taking up his time first. Anyway, Thomas seems to be a decent guy, and the last I heard, he works on art and some coding. And he has a friend that does some coding as well, so no committee. I think I remember sort of accusing the game of feeling like it was sort of assembled by committee. I suspect that's what Robert is addressing here. Just some interesting backstory there on Neversong. Please keep the interesting. Well, he doesn't say interesting. I said that part. Keep the episodes coming is what Robert says. So Thomas Brush's YouTube channel is youtube.com/Atmos Games. It's ATMOS Games. And DJ and I were checking it out before we recorded tonight, and it is just, he does daily videos about building your own video games and how to publish an indie game, and how to build things in 3D if you have no training in making things in 3D, and how to source music and stuff like that. So it really is kind of an interesting starter kit for assembling and publishing your own video game.
Yeah. But just going through the videos, it looks, I'm not a game developer, so I can't imagine where I would even begin with these things. But there are so many titles where I was like, oh yeah, maybe I would like to know how to do this, or at least see somebody who knows what they're talking about explain it. It's very cool. Right. And he talks not just about sort of his video games that he is developing, but also not necessarily critiques, but admiration, appreciation of other video games. He has a video, it looks like one of his most watched videos, about like good art in video games, and the graphic is Hollow Knight. Yeah. So clearly a fan of video games as well. So. Just was like an interesting character. I didn't love Neversong. I feel a little bad about that, knowing it was sort of this labor of love. But not everything is for everybody, I guess. But yeah. So it's just kind of an interesting character, and certainly somebody who is making video games kind of on his own terms. So definitely check out youtube.com/Atmos Games. And thanks to Robert for pointing this out to us and sharing this interesting information here. Yeah, thanks so much for emailing in. Yeah, that too. If you would like to be like Robert and send us a little piece of mail, you can do that at contact@VGHangover.com. It goes right into our inbox, and we'll try to get to it on a future episode of the show. On the show, apparently. Apparently, that's a thing that we do now. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, definitely. So yeah, that's about it, I guess. All right. Yeah, it's astounding to me how easy it seems to, or how easy it seems to be to, for people to make their own video game. I mean, I don't know. There are all these tools and tutorials now where you can just like plop yourself down in front of YouTube, and, I'm not saying like after a weekend you come out with Uncharted 4. Sure. They made that one, Uncharted 5, rather. But I see all these videos of people just messing around like, oh, here's a weird little demo that I made, and it's just a character shooting a sword, or not shooting a sword, shooting a gun, or swinging a sword. But it's like all in 3D and rigged and everything. I'm like, man, kind of wish I could do that. That looks cool. So, I don't know, maybe I should check out this channel. Do it, DJ. Yeah. I feel like it would just turn into every single video, every single Little Big Planet level I've ever made, where it's like the first 1% is super cool, and then it's just like, oh, where's the rest of it? Oh, ran out of time. Yep. Or this is too much work, so I'll just kind of hammer it in. Or that's the more realistic scenario. Yeah. Yeah. No, I love that. I remember when I first played Gone Home, this has been years ago at this point, when did Gone Home first come out, that it kind of maybe was one of the first times that I realized that, making a video game is so kind of accessible at this point that people can tell very personal stories in video games. Every video game I'd ever played before was, Uncharted or Pitfall, or, you know what I mean? It never really felt like people were doing things that were sort of, personal or biographical or things like that in video games. So, I remember sort of that awareness of realizing that we've arrived at a point where this is approachable and accessible enough to, perhaps people who are not necessarily, the most literate at assembling video games or writing code, that they can tell kind of interesting stories in video games or personal stories in video games in a way that had not been done before. Yeah. Two of the most interesting sort of tips I've heard for people who are interested in getting into video games, one was like, if you're not capable of programming a complicated thing, but you're just interested in game design, is like just come up with a card game. It's like, oh, that's seems obvious. That seems like a good way to sort of hone your development skills. And then the other one was, you don't have to make you don't have to make the next Uncharted. You can just make like a text adventure, and there are lots of tools out there for doing that. I thought, oh, that's true. That seems like a genre that gets very easily overlooked in favor of all these big fancy 3D things.
Sure.
Or even like 2D things with sprites moving around. But I played a lot of very cool games that were entirely text-based. So it seems like an easy place to start.
Yeah.
That's if you're, going for more of the story angle, I feel like. But anyway, cool. So I'm just saying, seems like it's, more accessible than ever if you want to start putting together your indie masterpiece.
Excellent. And if you do, let us know, and we'll play it. We'll talk about it on the show.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's wrap this thing up. If you need any more video game hangover in your brain, you should follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/VGHangover. You can always get show notes and links and tell us what you thought about this episode at VGHangover.com. We would love for you to hang out with us on Discord. You can get the link to that at VGHangover.com as well. Hang out with us, talk about video games and movies and all kinds of other fun stuff. We would love for you to subscribe, rate, and review us on your podcasting app of choice. We're on, what are we on now? We're on Amazon Music, we're on Spotify, we're on YouTube every week. Definitely like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, do all the things, please. And then help us out by telling your friends about the show.
Yeah, that's easy. Just DM your friend, be like, hey, new episode came out. They'd be like, what? Who is this? I don't know.
How did you get this number?
Well, we appreciate it. It really helps us grow the listener base, get more people emailing in. It's always fun. We want to give thanks again this week to Protodome for our intro and outro music. You can head over to protodome.bandcamp.com and buy all the albums that are there. Yeah. That would be great. Maybe just one album, but then you can work yourself up to, a second one, and then it just continues on from there.
That's a little bit about what happens on Bandcamp, because I find that it's really good at sort of like connecting you to other things other people have made, and if you like this thing, here's 6 other things that are just like that thing, and I end up buying a ton of music quite accidentally. Yeah, good for you. Help them out. Yeah, absolutely. No, I that's cool too, and that's again one of the fun things about supporting people through Bandcamp is that a lot of that money goes right to the person who made that thing. Yeah. We'll be back next week. Until then, this is Randy Dickinson. This is DJ Ross. Thanks so much for listening to Video Game Hangover. Goodbye. Good night. See you.
You want to take it from the top?
Yeah, let's try it.
Okay.
He will rock you. The heat will roll you. Baby, don't you know my heat will move your soul. Come on, come on, come on, come on. Love me till right. You feel my heat. Feel my heat. I think we should repeat that again. Feel my heat.
Feel my heat. Yeah, it's definitely cool.